Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me, and I am very excited to be hosting another SingSeptember event for you. I am Shanna Wells, the BABS Director of Marketing and Communications, and I am delighted to be joined by Tagline this evening. Tagline is a London-based quartet who are the 2015 BABS Quartet Champions and the 2018 BHS Youth Quartet Silver Medalists. Joe Picking sings tenor, James Gower-Smith sings lead, Rob Foote sings bass, and Chris Langworthy sings baritone. You may also recognise James, Chris and Rob from our recent BABS Live events. Their repertoire includes a wide range of musical styles from swing and jazz classics to musical theatre ballads and pop hits. Tagline will be hosting an informal session sharing their top tips about preparing for a barbershop contest, and we will then finish with a Q&A. If you would like to ask Tagline a question, please post your questions in the chat on the live feed and we will try and get them all answered. Thank you so much for joining us, guys. It's great to see you. How are you all doing?
Hi, Shanna. Yeah, we're really well, thank you.
Great. Well, as I said, I am very excited for this evening, so I am just going to hand over to you and I will speak to you all later.
All right.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, everyone.
Thanks, Shanna. Joe, do you want to give a little bit of a quick overview before heading on about what we're going to be talking about?
Yeah, definitely. Hello, everyone. Good evening. Hope you're enjoying your Saturday. This is all about contest preparation. So what we're going to do is we thought if we take people through 6 months before a contest day, and then 2 weeks before, and then a day before, and then an hour before, each of us given a kind of little insight as to some of the techniques, some of the processes that are going on at each of those times. Then yeah, I think that's the plan. Others, yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Absolutely. Great.
Yeah, we remember.
Doing really well.
Good stuff. Yeah, so I'm the first, which is the 6 months before. And yeah, so this is going to be a pretty informal session. We're going to jump in with random anecdotes, I'm sure, at any point. But I'm going to try and, I think if we start off on task, that'll be good. So we, as Tagline, when we're thinking about preparing for a contest, we'll be rehearsing that on a weekend. So we do all our rehearsals on a weekend. Chris is down in Sussex. The three of us are in London. So we kind of, either Chris will come up or we'll go down for a full weekend. So that's always how we've done it ever since I joined the group, what was 3 years ago, something like that. Which is something to note as well. I'm not going to talk about anything before that time. Don't remember it.
Wasn't there?
It wasn't there. Yeah. So when we have our weekend rehearsals, we'll come up on the Saturday morning, usually have a bit of a chat, cup of tea. Chris will tell us about his new thing.
Chris, do you want to tell us a little bit about your things generally?
Okay. This is a very deep and potentially long sort of topic, but essentially what I have are certain things which are jokes which I like to repeat no more than, say, 100 or 200 times. After that point, they come. They're sort of immortal forever. But my philosophy is that if you tell a joke and it's funny, it's good to laugh at it again and again. Everyone else would find this incredibly annoying. But Rob, Joe, and James know me well enough to accept that very strange side of me when I'll say make the same joke 20 times in a rehearsal. So, for example, every time in the last 2 years that we've had a little break in a rehearsal, I've suggested that we get our big hot brains on ice. And I've used that phrase every every single time, and they're still polite enough to laugh. So, gents, thank you so much for indulging me.
I think the first few hundred times it's definitely tolerating
Oh, I see.
it,
Yeah.
and then we give up.
Oh, I see.
Our resistance is worn down by the 700th petition.
Yeah, big believers in the idea that good jokes are like good wine or cheese. They get better with age.
Yeah, yeah.
It's somehow funnier the 100th time.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
definitely funny the 100th time than the first.
That's interesting, isn't it? Because it goes into the category of it's funny because you're still saying it rather than the content of it.
Yes, and I think what's really funny about it is that they become awkward very quickly, and I think I like jokes that become a bit awkward because they're so repetitive.
Yes. Well, there we go. That was our
But
first
I'm a strange
long
human
tangent.
being. Don't listen to me.
Good stuff. Okay, what was I saying? Yeah, so Chris is telling us about his new thing. That's a standard part of the rehearsal. And I was trying to kind of think through where we'd be 6 months before. So we've probably chosen our contest songs by this point. So 6 months before that, they're pretty much, I would say, usually we've selected the songs. We're probably still in the early stages of learning them, especially if they're new. And that would kind of go in the form of getting consistency. So that is really the theme, I think, 6 months before, is as consistent as possible throughout the whole thing. So we talk about the tempo, especially, there's songs that are in rhythm. We're discussing that then. We're getting that nailed down at that point. Like, what is the tempo? Let's practice singing it at that tempo. Of course, there are notes and words and things that we have to remind ourselves of occasionally in those early stages. But yeah, it's really about consistency of rhythm. That we often use a metronome, don't we? Like in our rehearsals. I've never been in another group that uses the metronome as much as we do, but I think it is really, really valuable to constantly have that beat behind you.
I must have sounded there that we realised we needed one after, I think, gosh, our 2016 performance in Nashville, which I think was a little before Joe joined the group, and we listened back and thought, gosh, if we can't really stay in time with each other, how we possibly know to sing the right words and notes at the same time too? Yeah. So metronomes have been a regular part of our rehearsals, and it's been a bit of a game changer sometimes, actually,
Yeah, especially singing songs like Every Night at 7, which is by a long way the hardest song that we've ever learned.
Which is faster than I can possibly count, for sure.
Yeah, it was when we were having, like, LOVE was the song that we were noticing when we were watching it back, that one bar was in a completely different tempo to another. If we did that with a song which is so busy and so fast, just like Every Night at 7, then it would be a train wreck. And that song doesn't need much of an invitation to become a train wreck. So like metronome work, certainly for those kinds of songs, is absolutely essential.
Yeah, for sure. And also, once you know the number, like it's 98 or whatever, then you can rehearse with that at home. So it's just setting that, actually writing it down is really helpful as well. Talk about, like, I would say maybe 50-60% of our time in rehearsal is spent singing in duets with someone coaching and listening out for tuning. That is the vast majority of our work. We always just, start with bass and lead, and we remind each other of all these things. I thought maybe, so there's this little trick that I learned with Tagline that I think people would be interested in. I think it was from Doug Harrington with the piano kind of note. So just imagine a situation where I'm singing, let's say with Rob, and I just can't find my note on a particular word. And we sing it a few times and I just can't get it. So what we do is someone would play the note on the piano in place of my word. So bong, and you'd hear it, and you'd maybe do that twice. And then after that, you'd sing this song and you'd play the piano note as you sang that note. And you do that a couple of times. And then you try it on your own, and if not, go back however many steps. And just doing that has really helped us on some tricky phrases. Would you agree?
Yeah, that always.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's also nice to let James play the note on the piano in order for him to get a bit of practice at the piano too. Highly valuable stuff.
He needs it.
Yeah, he needs it.
He's practiced more than I have over the last few years, so I can't really say that.
Yeah. So the other kind of main thing is big musical decisions we're making at this point. We're making 6 months before. So when we talk about phrasing, that we're having those conversations. How's the phrase going to be? What's the, rough, the kind of the dynamics that we're looking at? That kind of stuff is being talked about. If not kind of, it's probably not being perfected at this point, but it's definitely kind of making all those big decisions. And it's partly to enable what we do at home. It's partly because we're a long distance quartet, having all those breath points and all those big decisions out the way at this point, I do think helps when you're practicing at home. So to kind of sum up my little section, and please chip in, guys, if you think there's anything else. We're not really thinking about the contest day yet, and we're not practicing walk-ons or anything like that. We're just really cementing the foundations of the song. So my top tips would be make all the big musical decisions in terms of the tempo and the phrasing and the dynamics, that type of thing. Have those conversations. Definitely record yourself, like record a video of the rehearsal. We do that every single time, especially contest songs. Put a flag in the ground, as Steve Holden used to say.
That's one of my things now too.
It is a thing. Yeah, it's almost become one of, like you said it now.
Yeah, yeah. If I can channel even a tenth of Steve Holden's spirit, I'm doing very well.
Yeah, and part again, like having that video. When I come to rehearse, let's say 2 weeks later, and I go, "How do we do that bit?" Then we've got it, and we can watch. It's really really useful. Kind of like obvious things, but worth saying, like buy your suits and book your hotel accommodation for the competition, things like that. But overall, I would say 6 months before contest is pretty much a standard rehearsal for us. So we do, all our duetting, but we have fun. We have a lot of fun. We usually stay overnight on the Saturday and watch YouTube videos and play Jungle Speed and have a drink and a chat, that kind of thing. So yeah, it's not too different from a standard rehearsal. What do you think, chaps? Have I done all right?
Yeah,
superbly.
I think the only thing
And that's A level.
Yeah, and that's one of my things too.
That's another thing. The only thing I would add to that is I think that one of the big things that we always try and do is make sure that we as individuals have done as much work before we even start looking at a chart as a quartet as possible. Ideally, we aim to be off copy completely before we look at it together. That's not always possible, especially with bespoke arrangements, because quite often you'll get those kind of later on because they take time and what have you. But certainly, some of the best work you will do is, or can do as an individual singer, is outside of the rehearsal room, and making sure that you come knowing that everything is secure is as important as possible. Is what I would add.
Yeah, we definitely learned that the hard way when we first formed as a quartet, when Ben was our tenor, we spent a lot of time together at university during the first couple of years as the quartet because, well, at pretty much any one time, three of us were living together, so we could get quite lazy and take for granted how much time we had available to rehearse. And then during the first 6 months after we graduated in 2014, we really struggled to make that transition to actually sit down and plan how much time we had available and adjust to only seeing each other every few weeks when we used to see each other every day. And yeah, prelims in 2014 was that harsh realization of we do need to actually take this a little bit more little bit more seriously now, and do a lot more work before coming to rehearsals, and I think it paid off.
Yeah, that did pay off. Yeah.
Who'd
But
have
for those not
thought?
aware,
Thinking
that
ahead.
going like 9 months after that low point of prelims, we then won BABS. So that when we say it paid off, it paid off quite well.
Learning lessons the hard way.
Yeah.
Right, shall we move on?
Absolutely, yeah. So I'm going to talk about contest preparation 2 weeks before performance day. And I thought I'd start by telling you about a really interesting book I read a couple of years ago about the British Olympic team. And the British Olympic team and their many staff work very hard to make tiny, almost imperceptible gains wherever possible. That's like having the right kind of air conditioning in the hotel, or making sure that each athlete has got enough pairs of shoes arriving in the country enough time but before. And the idea is that enough of these tiny gains all together can make a really palpable difference, and can really lift their performance somewhat. And there are certain small gains that I like to think about 2 weeks before contest day. So one of them is practicing your singing every single day. Your voice is a muscle. It needs to be exercised regularly and efficiently in order to perform the way we want it to perform. So that can be scales, that can be literals, that can be excerpts of the song. It could be whatever you like. But I can't stress enough, I think, that practicing your singing every single day is such an important thing. Hydration is too. At convention, I hear no end of talk about hydration. Quite rightly, it's really important, but it does have to happen, not just on the day of your contest or the day before. It's not to be a regular thing that you're thinking about. As are things like the correct food. For some of us, eating the right food makes a big difference. Too much sugar gives me mouth ulcers, and it's a real shame because I love sherbet lemons. I adore sherbet lemons, but I can't have them 2 weeks before a contest. Which makes me very upset and nearly inconsolable at times. Things like not drinking much or any alcohol. Things like practicing wearing your contest clothes when you're singing and in your rehearsals, and in your shoes too. The worst thing you can do is wear your new shoes on the day of contest, because they will squeak and rub and you will regret it. And especially if you've bought your contest clothes in the weeks or months before, make sure you try them on 2 weeks before, because I do know of one quartet who will remain nameless who had to make, well, let's say, serious structural amendments to their clothes the day or on the day of their performance because they didn't try on their clothes 2 weeks before. So it's important. No, I'm certainly not trying to preach when it comes to food and alcohol and all the rest of it. But it is my sincere belief that just making one of those small gains could be an imperceptible difference, but making lots of those gains together could actually make some quite serious difference, and I think it's really worth focusing on and thinking about that. James, Rob, Joe, have I missed anything out?
I think the point about practicing singing every day is massive.
Yeah.
I don't know, James, do you remember that how you prepared for being Tony and West Side?
I mean, so I was, so when we what was it, in 2018, I played the role.
For those who don't know, James was Tony in West Side Story.
James,
he
were
was,
you in
he
West
was
Side?
excellent.
So about 2 months before the show, I gave up drinking, partly because it was such like the rehearsal period, I was doing it around my work, so I had a lot of rehearsals and it was just a very, very tiring period. But also it was a very vocally taxing show, and I knew that it was the first musical I'd done, and I wanted to make sure that the vocals were just bomb-proof. And I knew I could just walk on stage and know that like I could focus on anything else because the vocals would just be fine and they would look after themselves. So I would sing through the entirety of Tony's vocal material from the show about 5 or 6 times a week in that period. I would just like, it would happen pretty much once a day. I would just go off somewhere and just scream through Maria, and then like emerge a deflated man, and like I just did it again and again and again. And by the time it got to show week, I was actually really ill, or like relatively ill through the sort of dress rehearsal day, and then the first 2 days of the run, I felt dreadful, and it was fine. Like everything, like my voice worked exactly as I wanted it to, because those muscles were so well drilled that it didn't matter. Like I cannot. Yeah, singing practice as often as humanly possible is so valuable. I am also a huge believer in that. Yeah.
And I wanted to also talk about some musical things because this is music after all. In the weeks and months leading up to your contest day, there's going to be a lot of technical work done, of course. It's a really, really important feature. But when I think Joe joined the quartet in 2017, what he taught me certainly is that there's a point where you have to step away from focusing on the purely technical and really thinking about that extra musical content, the lyrical content of the music, what the song's about, who are you in the song, how you depict that, and how you depict those emotions. Now, there are some really great coaches in the UK at coaching this. Personally, I cannot speak highly enough of both Joe Brem and Sally McLean, when we've been lucky enough to be coached by them. They have got the very, very best out of us. There was one notable moment where Joe Braham played us back a contest video that we had done maybe prelims before, or something like that.
I think
And
it was actually the BABS a couple of weeks earlier.
Oh, was it? Oh,
yeah.
Well, there we are. Rob has got the best memory of anyone in the quartet by
that's a low bar.
Light years, loads and loads and loads. Yeah, but she stopped at a breath point and said, "Look at yourselves." And we looked as though we were standing at a bus stop, waiting for a bus. And I think that those two coaches are just so fantastic at making you really work at every single moment, making you work at those breath, not just at the words and the notes, but the breath points too, really depicting the lyrical content of the song at every moment. Something that we do, which helps a lot, is we sing in front of James while James sings at us. It's a great pleasure to watch James while he sings. He's a fantastic looking man, but it's a good idea as well to mimic his facial gestures and tone at specific points of the song to make sure that you're all selling the same message at the same time. Because there's nothing worse than stopping a YouTube video and everyone in the quartet has got a different facial expression. We've been guilty of that loads. Another important thing is positive reinforcement. Make each other feel great. Some of the best bit of coaching I ever saw was from Steve Tremack at BABS Directors Academy, and he pulled a singer from the chorus and got the singer to sing a couple of lines, and then got members of the chorus to say not what that singer could improve, but what he already did really well, what he was already doing brilliantly. And then Steve said, I'd like to sing it again, but you know those things that people pointed out as that you're doing really well, simply do them better. And believe it or not, it made a huge difference, this idea of positive reinforcement and making each other feel good about what you're doing is really important. Not just being critical and picking up on this section or that section, but really telling someone, you know, you sing that note superbly, or you look great there. Make them feel really good. We are, I think, good at evaluating different things. Joe is fantastic at story. Rob is a god at rhythm and remembering our performance plan. James is an exquisite singer and great at vocal pedagogy, and sometimes I can help with chords and tuning and things like that.
Chris regularly consults his various different reports on ninth chords.
Oh yes, I like reading about
everything to do with nines.
Well, they're so warm, aren't they? Well, they're just so warm sounding. And of course, singing in front of people is really important too. Ideally, well, no, importantly, the day of the contest should not be the first time that you sing that song in public, because the first time you sing that song in public, you will learn things about the song and each other and yourself that you never knew and couldn't know unless you really sang it in public. I remember before BABS in 2015, we sang, and Rob will correct me like a flash, I know, if I'm incorrect, with dates, venue, or personnel. But we sang in front of lots of Ben's actor musician friends at the Royal Academy of Music. And then 3 years later, in 2018, we sung in front of lots of the cast of West Side Story at Bishopsgate in London. Those didn't feel like ordinary run-throughs, because we were singing in front of people who really know what they're talking about singing-wise. Fantastic singers, fantastic actors, people who are much more experienced than me, and to have a group of real experts watch us, I think, replicated really well what we might feel like singing in front of not just a very large auditorium, but in front of 9 judges who will notice everything. And despite how hard you try, you will see a judge sometimes raise an eyebrow or write something at a certain point. You think, oh, I hope they're writing something good. You know, I hope they're writing something. I hope they're writing something really, really nice. There was one moment it was our very first prelims, and there was very high notes I had to sing, and I didn't sing it very well. And the judge looked up at me and then looked back at the paper and wrote something, and it was the worst feeling in the world. So to have practice, I think, sing in front of those real experts is a really valuable thing. Now, there's just one other thing I'd like to end with, but before I do, Rob, Joe, James, have I missed anything at all?
I was only going to say on that point of like singing, you know, we've been very, very lucky because of, you know, the things that Ben was doing and the stuff that I've done, that we've had groups of people who are, you know, often actors and people who are very, very excellent singers to sing for. It doesn't have to be specifically experts. But one thing I would say is I think it's really valuable, because there are a lot of quartets and BABS that sing for their chorus very regularly. I think that can be really helpful, but it's also really helpful to find a group you don't regularly sing in front of, because that will feel very, very different and they will react very, very differently. People that know you very, very well will always react very differently to how you perform against people that don't know you so well. And so if you can find a group of people that don't know you so well and sing in front of them, they will give you a far more interesting and helpful report on what you're doing well and where you're losing their engagement, than people that love you and just want to see you do what you do well.
I think it's also a bit about taking yourself out of that comfort zone, and that, well, if you're singing to your chorus or your friends who you see every week, then that is going to be a bit of a safer place. But the contest stage is not necessarily a safe place.
It won't feel like one. It is a safe place, but it won't feel like one.
A very safe place.
People don't die on the contest.
You're surrounded by friends.
A safe place.
And then here's the last thing that I wanted to say, really. Around two, I think sometimes in the weeks and months leading up to it, for sure, absolutely, this can happen. But I think particularly around 2 weeks before, people can set targets for themselves and expectations for themselves, for their own performers and their quartet's performance. Sometimes I think that's important. It's important to think about what you want to bring to the auditorium on contest weekend. I think some people do it for fun. That's a really good reason for doing barbershop. I think that's one of the principal reasons why lots of us do it. I think lots of people have personal goals like getting to the top 16 or the top 6 or the top 3. And of course, it's a competition, and lots of people when they compete, they want to win, and there's nothing wrong with that. But for me, it's about 2 things really. One is that it's about the journey. That that sounds so cheesy.
There it is.
I'm impressed that it's taken us 31 minutes.
31 minutes
for the J word to come out.
Shanna, if you could put on the sound of soft rain in the background here, that would be fantastic. But for me, it's really about not just what happens on that stage, but the really fun bit is the weeks and months before. It's about preparing a song, or a contest set, or 2 sets or whatever, to the very highest level that it could possibly be, and to having the most amount of fun doing so with your best friends. And the other thing is that I think the one thing I would say to everyone is aim to be the most musical quartet, aim to sing the most musically that you possibly can. Brandon Guyton once said that the quartet who rings the most chords normally wins the international gold medal. And I if Brandon Guyton says it, it's probably true. But I do also think that the quartet who sings most musically as well will do very, very well. And I think if you aim to sing the most musically that you can, you win, the audience win, the contest wins, and British barbershop ultimately, I think, wins. And I just wanted to say that enjoy the whole journey, because it's challenging and it's thrilling and it's supremely elating. And that's all I wanted to say.
Kind of following on from what Chris said, I know certainly during the first couple of years that we were competing as Tagline, we were definitely guilty of, we were very much focused on contest placing, and we want to beat this quartet, we want to score this score. And it's when in 2014 in Harrogate, in our second competition, we thought we were really zoning in on trying to win a medal that year, and we ended up not really doing any better than we had the previous year when we also came 4th. That was kind of like when we kind of had the break with focusing on getting a certain position or getting a certain score, and then trying to give our best performance for the audience. And that was a mindset shift, which I think it's fair to say, apart from the prelims which followed immediately afterwards, I don't think we've ever come away from a contest set thinking, "Oh, I'm really disappointed with that." I'm like, we've always felt really good after every single other contest performance we've given. I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, definitely. That mindset. Absolutely. Yeah, I think as much as journey is an awful word and that whole like concept is a bit, ugh, it is also true that like when, you know, if you asked, I think if you asked most barbershoppers, what are your favorite memories from your time singing barbershop? You know, we as a quartet have been enormously fortunate in the things that we've done and been able to do. Very few of my top memories, I would say, are moments of competition success. Most of my favorite memories are like often outside of a contest setting altogether. And I think that it's sort of like, you've got to remember, like, yeah, you have to remember why you're doing it. And it's fine if that's contest success, but also there's so much joy to be found through the process of it. And through the journey.
A little bit of me dies inside every time anyone says that.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you, Chris.
Well done, Chris.
Thank you all very much.
I'll talk about my bit yet, but my bit now. So kind of shifting on to the day, either the day before or the morning of, depending on the contest setup, what you're kind of trying to do at that point. So I think the key thing for us is the overarching theme is once you get to this point and you're at the competition, you're not trying to do anything that you haven't already done. Our main focus is always we're trying to reproduce our best performance from our rehearsal 2 weeks before, which is normally like that weekend performance in front of human beings, and then the only thing we're trying to add is things like positive reinforcement and just trying to have more fun with it. So we would typically either the afternoon the day before or on the morning have like a couple of hours rehearsal, and again we're not really focused on singing everything all the way through or doing a huge amount of technical work. We're mainly just talking about the performance plan and how we're going to communicate what we want the song to deliver to the audience. And so we'll probably do a couple of set runs for what we're about to sing, and then it's topping and tailing of each song, and we're starting to set in stone some of the rhythms that we're going to hit in terms of when we're in the warm-up room. So working through those plans of, right, we're going to do the start of this song a few times, and then we'll do the end, and then we'll work on that transition and going between the songs, and just really setting it so that all of those bits happen on autopilot, kind of once we're in the warm-up room. And yeah, if something technically is not working once, we don't really pay any attention to it. If we come back to it after a little while and it's not right 3 or 4 attempts later, then you'll maybe spend a couple of minutes on it. But normally, if you've been working on it and it's been fine for the previous few months, it's probably going to be all right when you actually go and do it on stage, and it's not worth losing that much sleep or getting yourself out of your kind of a competition performance mindset at that point. Also, another thing we find really helpful is having someone that we trust come and listen to us for a little bit of our rehearsal, and mainly their main purpose is to massage our egos, and we mainly want them to say, "You sound great, you look great, this is great, I'm really looking forward to hearing you in contest, everyone else is going to love you," etc., 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 just to kind of like puff up our egos and make us as relaxed as we can possibly be. Like I kind of feel like when we do our best contest performances, you're almost kind of like gliding on air through the 24 hours before, because you're not really, you've managed to get yourself into a state where you're not paying too much attention to everything else that's kind of going on. Because we all know how it is when you get to a convention and you see loads of people you've not seen since last year, and there is definitely a temptation to spend hours in the bar chatting to everyone the night before. But it's really important just to keep that discipline and just remind yourself, we've been working really hard for the last 6-8 months to get to this point and get to this performance. That's why we're here. We are here for those 10 minutes. There'll be plenty of time to chat and catch up with people afterwards. But for now, you do just have to be that little bit selfish about your time and your energy, because you do need it if you're going to give your best performance, I think. Have you guys got anything? I've got a few other bits, but do you guys want to say anything else on those? Whereas I've been yammering for the last 5 minutes.
It's been lovely. Your voice is so soothing and nice.
And so deep.
Yeah.
You would actually be a perfect person to have in that, keep you calm, just because it's so warm. It's like a hug.
And that's the kind of ego massage that is very important.
Yeah. Applications welcome.
Yeah, no, I would say the only other thing about like what do we actually practice, because we don't do the whole song, I often find that if there are any moves, we definitely go, okay, let's go through those moves and like it's just the easy things to forget, right?
I would say that we are infamous for nearly getting a lot of choreography wrong. In reality, I don't think we get that much wrong.
In front of other people, no.
Not in front of other people.
We get it wrong a lot
in rehearsals. I would say that I get it wrong nearly all of the time, actually. I'm terrible.
It's over 75%.
At least. Yeah, Rob, that's a very generous percentage. Thank you.
So the other things we would say is we may get in trouble, and all of our barbershop medals may be stripped from us when I say this, and I'm getting people may not be happy with me saying this, but we do have a phrase when it comes to our planning of time around contests, and it is maximize the holiday, minimize the barbershop.
I think it's very important.
And what we mean by that is kind of what I said earlier, but not spending a whole lot of time focusing on watching a load of other performances. It's very good to have listen to a couple of quartets or choruses just before, during the day before you go and do your performance, so you get a feel for what the room looks like if you've not been there before, what the audience hears, and you can kind of see, okay, yeah, that looks good. Oh, that doesn't work. But otherwise, you don't want to be focusing on that too much, because again, it distracts you from your own plans. I think last year at last BABS in 2019, I think I know James and Chris, I don't think you saw any performances at all before we did our stuff on Sunday.
We didn't, because of
until Saturday.
Because of work, I didn't see anything on the Friday, and we were first and last in the quartet finals. So we were the whole time anyone else was on stage, we were in the warm-up room.
Yeah, we have had a knack for most of the last few years at BABS of being drawn last.
We're almost always last, yeah.
Which means every time at prelims, when the draw's being made, I'm just on edge thinking, did I reply to the email? Name's not been called out. Are we actually going to be singing? Oh,
we're not in. We're not going to be in.
It's the most nervous I've ever seen Rob.
Yeah. Maybe one other thing I would add to that point is not about it's not about not seeing the barbershop. It's about spending that quality time as a quartet to not make you really nervous, because watching other contests and other quartets especially makes you nervous. You can go to a different place. When we were in Orlando, you guys went to the space station or something.
Oh, that's, I keep telling people we went to the International Space Station, but that's not true, because if we had gone there, we would have gone far into space. So that wasn't where we went.
Sorry.
We went to
the museum.
Rob, where did we go?
The Kennedy Space Center.
Thank you so much. the Kennedy Space Center, which I can confirm is on Earth, not in space.
Yeah, I didn't go, clearly. That was Rob and Chris.
And yeah, we also like having like quartet walks as
Yeah,
well. Just having a little stroll around the local area that we're staying in, like in Llandudno. We went for a walk around. Well, the house holiday cottage we were staying in was literally 3/4 of the way up the Great Orme, so it wasn't very hard for us to then go for a walk on the Saturday night. But yeah, it's just nice to have little things like that to kind of de-stress you and get yourself out of the bubble and just remind yourselves, oh, we are actually in quite a nice place a lot of the time, and just have a little chance to unwind.
And actually, I can endorse the Kennedy Space Center because they had great ice cream, didn't they, Rob?
They did, and a great soundtrack. Great
soundtrack, which became one of my things because there was some fantastic theme music as you went in, a bit like a bit like at Alton Towers, and one of the bits of music went something like this: do 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 do, and I would say that we sung that more than our contest material in Orlando, nearly.
It certainly felt like it.
Yeah.
It had a very quick. It got up to the 200 mark very quickly.
Very quickly.
Very quickly.
Yeah, I remember. It was in terms of. It's always one of the things I've always found difficult is that what is really wanting to support friends who are in other quartets. But and I'm sure I'm not alone in this, I really find that I compare myself to other people a lot, and that's always really bad for my kind of performance.
That's a lead thing, I think. I think that's a lead thing, I think, yeah.
Probably, and I think, like, I remember particularly in 2015 sitting watching the semi-finals and just having to, I was watching a quartet and just had like a little breakdown and just had to leave the room and go be by myself for a little while because I was just like, everything, it just made me really, really anxious. And I think, like, I'm sure that's happened to other people before, and I think, there's no one would ever, no quartet would, or friend in barbershop would ever blame you for having to remove yourself from that situation for the sake of your own performance. We're all playing the same game, and we all understand the challenges that we go through. You just have to do what you need to do, and no one else really gets a right to tell you what's right or wrong. I would say. Sorry.
Absolutely.
All right. The one last thing I have on my list is to echo Chris. Stay hydrated. Stay hydrated. Eat well, and have a good sleep the night before.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
And remember, it's a journey.
It is a journey.
The whole session was free of that word.
I thought we'd agreed we weren't going to use the J word today.
Well, at the moment, you all owe me several Kit Kats.
I see. Yeah.
Lovely.
That's another thing.
I have not that much time. So the last sort of section to talk about is about an hour before you go on stage. So I've kind of tried to break this up into before you go into the system, into the warm-up room, once you're actually in the system and in the warm-up room, and then when you're backstage just before you go on. So before you go into the warm-up room is really the last time you should be doing any kind of technical work at all. If anything, you kind of want to really avoid thinking about, does this, like, will that be in tune or will it not be in tune? I think we probably do. Certainly, I think in Orlando with Recipe, there were a couple of quite chromatic passages that were quite tricky to tune. So we just made sure that they were definitely okay. And I think the focus is never about fixing it. The focus is just kind of making sure you have absolutely no worries that when you get on stage, it will be fine and it will just sort itself out. You just want to keep coming back to what is the performance plan, what are the kind of main beats of the performance, and just keep talking that stuff through, and keep bubbling. I think we bubble a lot during the last hour, just really focus on keeping the connection with the breath. It's just so important. And just keep everything really chilled. Don't have loads of food. Lots of people have opinions on what food you should and shouldn't eat before you sing. It's your call. Like if you know that certain foods like make your voice go really claggy, then don't eat those. But there's arguably no right or wrong. In the warm-up room, once you actually get in there, we would recommend always having a coach. We have always found it really useful. We were in 2013 in Bournemouth. Rob Barber came into the warm-up room with us in the semi-finals, and we were in the middle of, I think it was Once Upon a Time, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
He just walked behind us and just threw a chair across the warm-up room.
I think he kicked a bin. I don't think he threw a chair.
In and like kicked the bin around to see how well we would cope with the distractions. And then we went on the stage. Obviously, nothing happened, and we just sang the song, and it was completely fine. But I guess it was sort of like that train hard, fight easy principle. But we were a big. I think yeah. Always have a coach, because it's kind of, one, it's good to have someone to massage your egos, but two, once you get into the warm-up room, the agenda rises. The whole thing of contest is a very kind of high agenda experience, but like the closer you get to the stage, the more you're likely to start feeling nervous. And having another person in the room who isn't going on stage, I think, is almost like a sponge for your nerves, in that like they can just soak that energy up while the rest of you can just focus on doing what you need to do. The most useful exercise I think we use is doing a walk on, coming to the mic, singing like the first phrase, maybe even the first verse, and just doing that again and again and again of each song. Because once you're over that first phrase, and once you're kind of past getting the song started, the rest of it will sort itself out, and the rest of it will be fine, because you all have rehearsed it and it'll be in your bones. It's just that thing of getting from backstage to the start of the song, and from the start of the stage to the start of the second song, and off again. Those are the bits that you want to focus on at that point, because that's sort of the stuff that nerves will affect more than anything else. Also, visualization we've always found very useful, I think, or certainly I found very useful. Yeah. Just sort of sitting. I remember us doing it with Duncan Winyates in Bournemouth that same year. I think he just sort of sat us down, and we all shut our eyes, and then we sort of, in our heads, went through standing backstage and hearing the sound of the audience, hearing the MC announcer going on stage, the lights coming up, the crowd applauding, and just really, really visualizing and imagining the sort of different sensations of it, to try and really run it, almost do a dry run of it in our heads. Something that a lot of professional athletes do a lot, and is really, really helpful. So I'd really recommend that.
Like us. Professional athletes like us.
Like us, yeah. Yeah, and just keep talking about the story, and keep thinking about the story beats. It's not a time to sort of think about, does that third need to be slightly flatter when it's in like the same note as before or whatever. Like, just try and forget the technical stuff in a weird way, and let your muscle memory deal with the technical, let your brain deal with the emotional, and you will get there. You'll get what you want to get across. And keep bigging each other up. Just we do a lot of being like, you look great in that suit. We do that a lot. Like, oh, great shirt.
Great hair.
Great hair. Great hair.
My God, you look good.
Gosh, you just look so good. It's probably about 60% of our time in the warm-up room. And then backstage itself is obviously the point where you're going to feel the most nervous, and that is completely human. And if you didn't feel nervous shortly before walking on stage in front of a panel of 9 judges and possibly as many as 1,000 or more people, you'd just be a bit odd. So just keep breathing, keep focusing on the breath. We pretty much constantly have the pitch of our first song going, just like every few moments, we'll just have it again, just to constantly keep that pitch and our first notes in our head, so that we can just think about that a bit less. Remember that your audience is there to be entertained, so they want you to succeed. They want you to be good so that they will enjoy themselves. They're not there to see you fail. They want you to succeed just as much as you do. You can just relax and enjoy the performance, and they will enjoy it so much more. There's a really weird technique for performance anxiety, and I haven't really taught the others through this yet, which I picked up at drama school, which is one our head of drama swears by. And it's talking to your nerves. And I'm aware I'm going to look like a weird actor doing this, and that's just fine. But trust me, it really, I've done it for all the auditions that I've done so far at drama school, and it's been so helpful. So first thing you have to do is identify where in your body you feel nerves. So I feel nerves in my hands get really shaky, and my knees feel a bit weak. Some people get like their heart just starts like thudding in their chest. Some people feel really sick, but for a lot of people it's like, and some people get facial twitches as well, but those you can do kind of slightly less about. But what you do is you basically just shake, if it's your hands or your knees, just really give them a really thorough shake, or if it's like your heart or your stomach, just give it a really good rub and just talk to them and just be like, hello hands, hello, thank you for being there for me. I'm going to give you a bit of what you want, and then we're going to go and perform. And you'll look insane, and that's completely fine, but like honestly, it really works.
Can I just say I've known James for close to 10 years now, and that is not by any stretch the weirdest thing I've ever seen him do.
No,
that was like a normal day for James.
Certainly not immediately before a performance either.
Well, no, yeah.
That would be one of my hot tips. But just and also, I think we've always had sort of like, when we're sort of like actually backstage, just sort of off stage, we always have like a bit of a hug. Is always really nice.
Oh yeah.
And I've always really
liked.
And the high five, we do a thing where we sort of like, the person at the front puts their hands out and then you like high five down the line. I've always really liked that. That's always been really nice. Yeah. It's just sort of like having those moments that really pull you together, because like you're going to need each other when you're out on stage, because it's terrifying. That would be, I think, most of it. And then you're there, you're on stage and you're fine, you have a great time. And then you go far.
Love it. I feel a bit nervous. Does everyone else just like going through that and like, oh, like I'm there again? Oh,
yeah.
I only have one extra thing that I think we do, which is we usually have like a trigger word for like the emotion or a story of a song. So like for Frim Fram, it would be like flirty, literally like one word. And then we'd probably like blow the pitch and sing tune, and then we'd probably just say that to each other, just like, remember, like you're going out, you're flirty or something like that, just to kind of get you in that mindset. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Great.
And I think that's it.
I think that is it. I think that's all we've got. And there's Shanna.
Yay!
Hello, Shanna.
Hi, guys. That was absolutely fantastic. Thank you. I actually didn't want to come back because I was just enjoying listening to you talking so much, to be honest. I also have to say your quartet relationship is absolutely amazing, and it's really coming across, and I can see why you guys love singing together. So thank you so much for sharing that with us tonight as well. I've really enjoyed watching that and getting sort of inside your quartet a bit, which has been fantastic for me personally, and I'm sure everybody else as well, but I'm just thinking very selfishly right now.
Well, as we've all said for some time, James has become a very talented actor.
Okay, so we have had some questions coming in, so I'm now going to just start reading them out and you can give me your fantastic answers to them. Okay, so number one has come in. How many full runs through of your set in its entirety do you do on the run up to contest?
Well,
I think I would say the key, we probably start, if we can do a full set run as far ahead as possible, then we, the sooner the better, really. The sooner you can start getting on your feet, the better, because it's just, you just want to keep, the closer you get to contest, it's like a funnel, the more detailed and granular you want to get with things, and the more you can run it, the more you can just keep working those details in. I wouldn't say there's a set number, because sometimes we've picked up songs like far closer to convention than we would have liked, and those songs did not get many full runs. I don't know.
Sometimes I'd say that we probably don't perform enough to other people. Sometimes I think, if we think about performing our contest set, how many times we perform it to people before we sing it on stage? I don't know.
Normally we do.
Probably not more than 3 times or so.
No, we kind of do on those days when we have like performed to other people. We normally do two runs of it. Just but not normally a huge
Yeah.
amount more. Maybe to like Pippa or Rebecca or Alice, like they may they probably hear us through the walls 1,000 times when we're rehearsing.
Alice usually leaves the house.
So does Rebecca, actually.
So in answer to the question then, I guess we'd perform in front of people no more than 3 times. I'm not sure we'd start doing runs much more than a month before, but I think ideally the more the better. Absolutely, I think the more performing a set, because you know a set can be long, it can be vocally demanding. I've heard international gold medalists say, you know, that by the end of one particular set, you know, they've been tired. It's been hard. So you want to make sure that that's as firmly in your comfort zone as possible. So as much as possible, the more the better, I would say.
Great, thank you. Okay, so James, we just heard you speaking about talking to your nerves when you deal with stage nerves and trying new things. So the question goes to all of you. What's your top tip for dealing with stage anxiety or stage nerves?
Gosh, my top tip.
Well, Chris is a fan of copious quantities of beer. No, I jest.
No, no, I'm just not.
Chris suddenly turns up to rehearsal
Thanks,
like contest having had a slightly special cigarette and then singing all of his parts up an octave.
No, yeah, no. I'd say that my own thing. I mean, actually, I say I don't normally get hugely nervous before a set because I mean I play the piano as well, and I find that when I'm if I was to do a solo performance recital, that's the point at which I'd get most nervous because that's just me and the piano. I think when I'm doing barbershop with 3 other very talented and reliable singers who I've sung for years, I think that can often seem like a comfort zone. But I think just doing really good preparation, visualization, imagining how it's going to feel, thinking about how you walk on, what you're wearing when you walk on, what the audience sounds like, how it feels to sing every note really well. Play that through in your mind 100 times. I'd say that's the most useful thing that I do to conquer stage nerves.
I think a lot of it comes down to just trusting the work that you've done before, and knowing that there isn't a gap in between rehearsal, contest, and just remembering that it is all linked together.
How would you describe that link of time, Ron?
That passage of time from one point to another.
It's kind of like a voyage.
A continuum.
Yeah. Like a trip.
Yeah.
A voyage, I think, is
a drive in the car.
Oh, we're going to settle on voyage. Okay.
Okay. Okay, I have a great question that links with that voyage, actually. So obviously you talk a lot about voyages and maybe another word beginning with a J. Do you have any songs by them in your repertoire?
No.
No? Is it not something you're planning on putting in the future?
Well, we have to now.
I think it's a given, really, Rob.
It might be a trio.
Okay, moving on to that then. Okay, so why do you stack in the order that you do in your quartet?
Well, we're now back to the traditional
fantastic question
order, but I think when we first made the switch, I think at the point that we were at, we needed something to kind of force us to change how we were singing. And I think part of it was Chris and James. We had quite a lot of comments about not having a great Barry lead blend, and so moving Chris and James closer together let them hear each other a little bit better. Personally, I also enjoyed being on the end of the quartet because I'd previously always been quite restricted in my performance and like physical movements, and then suddenly being on the end, I felt like I had a lot more freedom and space, and instead made Chris like squished up in the middle. And also for me, I did at that point, I wasn't the most in tune singer, and I'm probably still not as in tune as I could or should be, but I found it a lot easier to really lock into the quartet sound of just having everyone on one side. And that really, I felt then I could like slot into the quartet sound instead of trying to make the quartet sound about my voice, if that makes sense. And then that helped to make our unit sound a lot more cohesive than it had been.
Definitely. I think there were, and I think we had a couple of songs that we've been singing for a little while that we wanted to take into contest, and we were aware that they needed shaking up a little bit. I remember we had a session where we just started singing the song, and then every few bars we just moved someone and just kind of just tried loads of different things, and just tried to see what we felt we liked and what had an effect on what, and just experimenting. Experimentation is, I guess, always the key, a very useful thing to do. Just try stuff out. There's no right or wrong answers a lot of the time. Just give it a go.
Thank you. Okay, so you spoke a lot about having some coach go through the system with you. So we've had a question come through as who took you through the system in Florida when you came second at the International Youth Contest?
It was Varian and Gemma, wasn't it?
Yes.
And I was wondering if it's them that have asked that question simply
Like
so that
it seemed
simply
like
so we
something
can
they would
say their
ask.
names on this webcast.
No, actually it wasn't, but I'm sure
fine.
absolutely love that you have
and,
anyway.
And actually, they were absolutely fantastic, weren't they? They were so good, and they're such nice people, and such good friends, and they've been so supportive of us. In fact, for years, really. That was great to have them there.
Fantastic, thank you. Okay, question for James. What have you learned from LSMT that applies to the quartet?
Can I just check whether it was James who asked that question? Did James just want to talk? Just want to say?
James, are you at music college?
Yeah.
Am I?
I didn't know you. I didn't know you were there. What was a lot of fun.
It is. It has been. I think it's. I guess some of the biggest things has been I've gained a much stronger grounding in vocal technique, which I think has been really helpful, especially in terms of like how to fix problems when we've been struggling with stuff from a purely pedagogical point of view. So that's been really useful, and just in terms of like starting to think more about how you craft a story and how you tell a story effectively, and how you act through song, and all of that sort of stuff. I think has that been helpful? I hope so.
Very, very, very helpful.
Genuinely, it has though.
James is, in all seriousness, James is a real expert, not just in singing, but in acting as well. And as singers, we on the barbershop stage, we're very much actors too. It's a really, really important part of it. And James has become very, very, very good at both of them, which is helpful for someone like me who struggles to make a sad or angry face. Not that you have to do much of the latter in barbershop, but
Brilliant. Okay, so Pippa has asked, who comes up with moves in your songs?
Joe, I would say, is probably one of our most.
I think. Well,
and
Joe
borrows,
more recently,
Joe
maybe
borrows them from someone, doesn't he?
Oh, that's true. Actually, Alice actually helped me choreograph. History, the music video we did. We did all this kind of and the whole linking arms and stuff. So. Yeah, she always says that I take the credit for that, which I almost just did.
I'm really sorry, Alice. I didn't mean to steal your work.
Exactly.
Fantastic. Okay, so continuing, Joe, with you, are you as a quartet going to collaborate with the Bristol Suspensions at all in the future?
Oh, good question. Yes.
Fantastic.
A very political answer.
Okay, Bethany asks, in response to what you were saying, Chris, about sugar affecting you and so you take it out of your diet, she's saying, is it the sugar, do you think, or is it something else like the food colouring or something? Because she gets really affected by different colours of food, particularly in sweets. Do you know any more about that, or is that just...
Fantastic question. I'll have to bow to Bethany's expertise on that one. Okay. I don't know. I've always assumed it's been sugar because I don't eat exclusively sherbet lemons, but lots of other different sweets. So I've always assumed that it's sugar, actually. But I don't know, and it's what I find out more because if there is a way that would allow me to eat my beloved sherbet lemons more regularly, I would love to find a way to do so.
Get the undyed sherbet.
Yeah. Green ones. Sherbet limes.
Okay, so question to all of you. How long do you spend on tuning in rehearsals, and what methods do you use? That's from Danny Spindler.
I think probably the answer is just however much is necessary. It's sort of
until it's 80% of the time not wrong.
Yeah,
it's 90% of the time not wrong.
It is probably the least interesting part of the rehearsal. I certainly feel, it's like it is just graft and it is necessary and you have to do it.
Tuning and vowels.
Tuning and vowels, they're often not the most fascinating part, but also it pays dividends, because if it sounds great, you'll go on stage feeling great and it'll just be great. But yeah, I think it depends on the piece. Something like Every Night at 7, there were sections that we spent what felt like an eternity tuning. But then something, I'm trying to think of an example. I'd say something like Please Let's Not Even Say Hello. There were some bars of that we spent a long time tuning because they were really closely voiced and really tricky, particularly for Chris. But some of it was a bit more straightforward. It varies from piece to piece, really. We do have a slightly bad habit for choosing quite difficult charts, which is, we kind of make our own bed, so then we have to lie in it. But History, we didn't spend that long tuning. That was quite quick to tune because that was relatively simple. And
because it was a great arrangement.
Yeah. Get your arrangements from Sam Hubbard. He's great. Also a message we would pass on.
One important thing I think when looking at a piece of sheet music, in some ways it's easy to work out the bits that you need to spend most time shooting. Easy to spend the most time tuning, because they're generally the bits that have the accidentals on. When the music stops being diatonic, so just notes the major and minor scale. That stuff is usually relatively easy to tune because it's easy to find the right note quickly. But when you get chromatic notes, if you've got a page full of chromatic music, and I can think of a few of our charts that have that, they take a long time to tune. Tuning something I like, but I'm a odd man, so.
Great. Okay. Well, we've got a couple more questions, so I'm going to keep going on if you're all right to stay and answer a few more for us.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, so this again is for Joe. How does a cappella contests compare to barbershop contests?
Pretty different, I would say, because you're a lot more exposed in the barbershop contest. There's just the four of you, and you are sort of creating the fundamental sound, whereas in a cappella, I always think, if I explain the difference, a lot of it is you're imitating instruments. So you've got a beatboxer and a bass to kind of sort out all the root and the rhythm and things like that. So often you've got a microphone as well, so it does feel quite different. But every single thing that, like James talked about, an hour before, I would say is pretty much exactly the same. That's what we used to do in the suspensions, was very, very kind of positive talk like the hour before, you know, being really nice, just rehearsing like a couple of things, telling each other how great we were and how proud, and whatever happens, we're going to be absolutely fine, and that type of thing. So yeah, it's not as vocally nerve-wracking, if that makes sense, in a cappella. I just feel like when there's 16 of you and there's a microphone, you know, if you've got a note that you're not too sure of, is there that? You know, so yeah, barbershop, I feel like I'm on like clean eating and drinking like for a month before, whereas a cappella, 3 days maybe.
No.
We're students, like.
Stop giving the game away.
Okay, Chris, we have a very important question that has come in for you.
God.
So the question is, where is your favourite postbox located?
Oh, my favourite postbox location. Thank you for asking. That is an important question. I have a real.
Have we got enough time for this answer?
Yeah, I don't know. How many days till Christmas, Rob? I have a real interest in sort of isolated rural post boxes. I like the little ones on sticks. I don't know why. Well, I do know why. Is because I once read that about 99% of British homes are within sort of half a mile of a post box, and I started noticing the post boxes. And then, because I used to live in the Brecon Beacons in Wales, where I go back to sometimes, there are a lot of these rural post boxes, and I find them interesting because I wonder if anyone ever puts letters in them. And I think I'm boring myself.
You didn't answer. Where is your favourite one?
Oh my, sorry, I didn't answer. Where is it? Oh gosh, I mean, I've got a lot. I'd say my favourite at the moment isn't one I've ever visited, but it's on a picture that my mum sent me. She saw one in the newspaper, cut it out, and actually posted it to me. And it's and it's on a little stone wall in Scotland. But I haven't got any plans to visit it.
Oh, that's
yes,
a shame.
I'm surprised that we still managed to qualify for youth with Chris like 2 years ago.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Okay, so your last question, again, I'm sorry, it's not a serious one. It's literally, is facial hair a prerequisite to be a member of Tagline?
Oh, no. I don't think any of us knew this was possible until very, very recently.
It's been a long time coming.
If facial hair was a prerequisite, then James would only have been a member of our quartet in the last 3 months. So we wouldn't have had a rehearsal.
I'd say mid-June.
Yeah, we wouldn't have had a rehearsal yet.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay, well, that is it, guys. Thank you so much for joining me this evening, and thank you to everyone who has been watching on the live stream. It has been an absolute pleasure spending the evening with you guys, so thank you very much for coming along and sharing your journey and your thoughts and feelings, especially about post boxes. It's greatly appreciated to everybody. Just remember, we have a few more events coming up before the end of September, so please do keep tuning in and checking us out, and take care, everyone, and we look forward to seeing you all very, very soon. But thanks again, guys. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and I will see you all very soon.
And you, Shanna.
Thanks
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.